In the distant future, a small spaceship hurtled through the void of space, its engines straining under the pressure of re-entry. Inside, the crew of 3 clung to their seats, hearts pounding in anticipation and fear. Captain Riley, a seasoned astronaut with a strong sense of duty, gripped the control panel, sweat beading on his forehead. "Hold on tight. We're going in hot," he shouted, his voice barely cutting through the roar of the engines. As the ship plummeted through the thick atmosphere of an alien planet, the vessel began to shake violently. Engineer Tom struggled to stabilize the controls, his fingers flying over the buttons. "I'm trying, but the heat shield is failing. We might not make it," he yelled, panic creeping into his voice. Biologist Maya, seated behind them, clutched her data tablet, her eyes wide with fear and fascination. "Look at the readings. This planet is rich with biodiversity," she exclaimed, trying to shift the focus from their impending doom to the wonders below. The ship's alarms blared as they broke through the clouds, revealing a vibrant landscape of lush jungles, towering mountains, and winding rivers. A moment of awe washed over them as they caught sight of the breathtaking beauty. But that moment was fleeting. With a violent jolt, the ship collided with the ground, sending debris flying in every direction. The crew was thrown forward and everything went black. When Riley regained consciousness, he groaned and blinked against the harsh light filtering through the shattered cockpit. He quickly assessed the damage. The ship was wrecked but still intact. "Tom, Maya, are you okay?" he called out, anxiety flooding his chest. Tom stirred beside him, rubbing his head. "I think so, but we need to get out of here," he replied, his voice hoarse. Maya crawled from the back, her eyes scanning the wreckage. "We're alive, but we need to check the surroundings. There could be dangerous wildlife." Riley nodded, forcing himself to focus. "Let's move. We need to assess the damage and find a way to contact the rescue team." They unbuckled their seatbelts and cautiously made their way outside. The jungle was alive with sounds, chirping insects, rustling leaves, and distant calls of creatures they couldn't identify. Sunlight filtered through the dense canopy, creating a mosaic of light and shadow on the forest floor. As they stepped out of the ship, the vibrant colors of the alien flora captivated them. Tall trees with twisting trunks reached for the sky, while exotic flowers bloomed in shades they had never seen. Maya knelt to examine a nearby plant, her curiosity piqued. This could be an entirely new species, she marveled, brushing her fingers against the soft leaves. "Stay focused, Maya. We can explore later. Right now, we need to find shelter and gather supplies," Riley instructed, scanning the area for any signs of danger. The air was thick with humidity, and they began to sweat under the pressure of the jungle heat. As they ventured deeper into the foliage, a sudden rustle startled them. They froze, instincts kicking in. A pair of large, glowing eyes emerged from the shadows, and a monstrous creature lunged at them. Snarling, "Run!" Riley shouted, adrenaline surging through him as they sprinted back towards the ship. They ducked and dodged through the trees, hearts racing, the creature hot on their heels. Just as it was about to pounce, Tom grabbed a branch and swung it at the beast, hitting it squarely on the snout. The creature yelped and retreated, allowing them a moment to catch their breath. That was too close. Maya gasped, leaning against a tree. "We can't stay here. We need to find higher ground and get a better look at the surroundings," Riley said, determination fueling his resolve. They climbed up a small hill, the jungle sprawling below them. As they reached the top, they spotted smoke rising in the distance. "There! We might not be alone," Maya pointed excitedly. "Let's check it out. It could be a settlement, or at least a sign of life," Riley suggested, his hope rekindled. As they made their way toward the smoke, they noticed the landscape beginning to change. The dense jungle opened up to reveal a clearing where strange structures loomed. The architecture was unlike anything they had seen. Graceful, organic shapes that seemed to blend seamlessly with the natural environment. The crew exchanged glances, a mix of trepidation and excitement coursing through them. What do you think they are? Tom wondered, scanning the area. Only one way to find out, Riley replied, leading the way. As they approached, they heard sounds of laughter and music, echoing through the air. Curiosity replaced their fear as they stepped into the clearing, revealing a scene that would change their lives forever. Before them stood a tribe of tall, beautiful women, their skin shimmering in shades of green and gold, adorned with intricate jewelry and flowing garments made from the local flora. They moved with grace, their laughter infectious, and the crew could only stand in awe as they watched the women dance around a fire. Wow, Maya breathed, taking in the sight. They look incredible, but the moment of wonder quickly turned into uncertainty as the women noticed the humans. Their laughter ceased, and silence fell over the clearing. The tribe's leader, a striking woman with long hair and piercing eyes, stepped forward, a mixture of curiosity and suspicion on her face. "Who are you, and why have you come to our land?" she demanded, her voice strong and commanding. Riley stepped forward, trying to maintain a sense of authority despite the unease swirling in his stomach. "We mean no harm. We are explorers from another world, and we crash-landed here." The tribe murmured among themselves, their eyes assessing the humans with a mix of intrigue and caution. The leader crossed her arms, studying them closely. "You are trespassers in our territory. What is your purpose?" "Survival," Maya interjected, her voice trembling slightly. "We need food and shelter." The leader's expression softened slightly, but her stance remained firm. "You must understand our ways. We do not take kindly to outsiders." As the tension thickened, the phrase, "eat softies or die here," echoed in the air, uttered by one of the tribe's members, who seemed both playful and threatening. Riley took a deep breath, knowing they had a long road ahead. "We are willing to learn and respect your customs. Please let us show you we mean no harm." The leader considered his words, her gaze piercing through him. "Very well, but know this. Trust is not given easily. Prove yourselves." The stage was set for an encounter that would test their courage, adaptability, and the very essence of what it meant to be human in the face of the unknown. The days following the initial encounter with the tribe were a whirlwind of tension, curiosity, and slow integration. Riley, Maya, and Tom found themselves living among the giant women, always under their watchful eyes. Despite the tribe's physical beauty, it became clear that their customs were anything but gentle. They were warriors, powerful and dominant, with traditions that demanded strength, both physical and mental. The crew had been given a small, makeshift shelter on the outskirts of the village, close enough to be monitored, but far enough to remind them that they were not fully trusted. Riley, ever the leader, took it upon himself to establish some sort of rapport with the tribe's leader, who they had learned was called Salia. Every day, he approached her with respect, offering their help in small ways, though he couldn't shake the feeling that they were being tested at every turn. The tribe's culture was both fascinating and intimidating. During the day, the women trained relentlessly, practicing combat, hunting, and even strategic games that resembled ancient Earth war simulations. The humans were often invited, no, commanded, to join, and it became clear that "eat softies or die here" wasn't just a playful phrase. It was a warning. You either adapted to the tribe's ways or you perished. Maya, still reeling from the crash, threw herself into understanding the tribe's customs. She spent hours observing their practices, trying to connect the dots between their strength and their biology. Despite their intimidating appearance, the women had a deep connection to the planet, something far beyond the humans' comprehension. They communicated with the land in ways that defied explanation, their strength seemingly drawn from the very earth beneath their feet. One evening, as the tribe gathered for a communal meal, Maya decided to broach the topic with Salia. "You're connected to this planet in ways we can't even imagine, aren't you?" Maya asked, her voice soft but curious. Salia studied her for a moment before answering. "We are one with the Earth. Its strength is our strength. To survive here, you must understand this." Maya nodded slowly. "We want to learn. We need to." Salia's gaze was piercing, as if she could see into the depths of Maya's soul. "Learning is not enough. You must become. There is no room for softness here." She paused, then added, "You will face a trial." Riley and Tom, who had been listening from a short distance, exchanged worried glances. A trial? They were barely keeping up with the tribe's daily expectations, and now this. But they knew they had no choice. If they didn't prove themselves, they would be cast out, or worse. The following day, the tribe gathered in a clearing just outside the village. The air was thick with tension, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. Salia stood at the head of the group, flanked by her warriors. Riley, Maya, and Tom stood opposite them, feeling small and vulnerable in the face of the towering figures. "The trial is simple," Salia began, her voice carrying through the clearing. "Survive until sunset." Before they could react, the tribe dispersed into the jungle, leaving the three humans standing alone. The jungle seemed to close in around them, the vibrant greenery suddenly feeling much more menacing. "What now?" Tom muttered, his voice laced with frustration. "We survive," Riley said firmly, though the weight of the situation was pressing down on him. "Let's stay together and find a defensible position." The jungle was alive with sounds, distant growls, the rustle of leaves, the flutter of wings overhead. Every sound felt like a threat, and their nerves were stretched thin. As they moved deeper into the jungle, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Hours passed, and the sun began to dip lower in the sky. They had managed to evade a few encounters with strange alien creatures, using their wits and knowledge to avoid direct confrontation. But it was clear that the jungle itself was testing them, as if the planet was alive and conscious of their presence. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the underbrush, and they turned to see a massive beast emerge from the shadows. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Hulking and muscular, with a thick hide and razor-sharp claws, the beast charged at them with terrifying speed, its eyes glowing with primal fury. Riley reacted first, grabbing a fallen branch and using it to fend off the creature. Tom followed suit, while Maya searched for any weakness in the beast's armor-like skin. The fight was brutal, every second a battle for survival. The beast swiped at Riley, knocking him to the ground, but he quickly scrambled back to his feet, refusing to give in. As the fight dragged on, exhaustion began to take its toll. Tom's arm was bleeding from a shallow cut, and Maya was gasping for breath. The beast seemed unstoppable, but then, in a flash of insight, Maya noticed something: the creature's eyes. The glow in its eyes flickered when it was in direct sunlight. "Riley, get it into the light," she shouted, pointing to a small clearing where the sun broke through the canopy. Riley and Tom worked together, baiting the creature into the clearing. As soon as it stepped into the sunlight, its movement slowed, and the glow in its eyes faded. They didn't hesitate. With a coordinated effort, they struck the creature down, its body collapsing with a final, guttural growl. For a moment, the jungle was silent. They stood there, panting and covered in sweat, their victory feeling hollow in the face of their exhaustion. But they had survived. They had faced the trial and lived to see another day. As the sun began to set, the tribe reappeared, emerging from the jungle like shadows. Salia approached them, her expression unreadable. "You survived," she said simply, her voice carrying a note of approval. Riley, still catching his breath, nodded. "Barely," Salia studied them for a long moment before speaking again. You have proven yourselves worthy for now. But remember, this world is unforgiving. There will be more trials. Maya looked at her, determination burning in her eyes. We'll be ready. Salia nodded once before turning and leading the tribe back into the village. The humans followed, knowing that their journey had only just begun. The tension between the humans and the tribe had begun to ease after they proved their survival skills. But the crew knew they were far from fully accepted. Each day presented new challenges, pushing them to their limits. The tribe, while not openly hostile, was not warm either. They watched the humans closely, scrutinizing every action, every word, and every mistake. Riley, Maya, and Tom had established a routine, learning the rhythms of the tribe's day-to-day life. It became clear that their survival was tied not just to their physical strength, but to their ability to adapt mentally and emotionally. The tribe valued resilience, but they also valued understanding, the ability to learn from the environment and each other. One morning, as the crew gathered water from a nearby stream, they overheard a conversation between Salia and another warrior. The warrior's voice was sharp, her words cutting through the air. They don't belong here. They are weak, soft. How long before they make a mistake that costs us? Salia's response was calm but firm. They have shown they can survive, but survival is not enough. They must learn to thrive, or they will perish like the others before them. The words hit Riley hard. He knew they were being judged on more than their physical ability. The tribe wanted to see if they could truly understand their way of life, to become part of it. He glanced at Maya and Tom, who had also heard the exchange. We need to do more than survive, he said quietly. We need to show them we're not just passing through. Later that day, an opportunity presented itself. The tribe was preparing for a significant event, a ritual they called the binding, where they honored the land and its creatures. The humans were invited, though it was clear that this was less of an invitation and more of an expectation. They were to participate, and how they did so would be closely observed. The tribe gathered in the village center, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Large wooden carvings adorned the space, representing the planet's most dangerous creatures. The air was filled with the scent of herbs and burning incense, and the rhythmic beating of drums set a steady, hypnotic pace. Salia approached the humans, her expression as unreadable as ever. This is not a simple ritual. It is a test of your connection to the land. You will choose a beast, one of the creatures we revere, and demonstrate your understanding of its nature. Fail, and the land will reject you. Riley nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. The tribe saw the land as a living entity, one that could either embrace or expel outsiders. To fail this ritual would mean not just losing the tribe's trust, but losing any chance of surviving long-term on the planet. As the tribe members began their own rituals, Riley, Maya, and Tom stood before the carvings, each representing a different creature they had encountered since landing. The trial beasts they had fought, the predator they had narrowly escaped, and several others, some of which they hadn't yet seen but had heard whispers of in the tribe's stories. Maya stepped forward first, her eyes scanning the carvings before settling on the trial beast, the one they had fought and barely defeated. She reached out and touched the carving, its rough surface cool under her fingertips. This one, she said, her voice steady. I understand it now. Its weakness was not in its body but in its connection to the sun. It thrives in the dark, in the shadows, but the light weakens it. Salia watched closely as Maya explained, her expression unreadable but intent. After a moment, she nodded, signaling for Maya to proceed with her offering. Maya stepped forward, holding a small bowl of herbs and water she had prepared earlier. She knelt before the carving and whispered a few words of respect in the tribe's language, a gesture she had learned during her observations. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to show she had made an effort to understand their ways. Tom was next. He hesitated for a moment before choosing a carving of a creature that resembled a large, serpentine predator they had encountered on their first night in the jungle. "This one is a hunter," he said, his voice firm but thoughtful. "It's patient, waiting for the right moment to strike. It doesn't waste energy on unnecessary fights. It only acts when it's sure of its target." He, too, offered a small gesture of respect, pouring water onto the base of the carving and murmuring a few words in the tribe's language. Tom's technical mind had always been his strength, and in this moment it showed. He had analyzed the creature, understood its behavior, and offered a practical tribute. Finally, Riley approached. He took a deep breath, his eyes lingering on the various carvings. Unlike Maya and Tom, his choice wasn't clear. He had been so focused on leadership and keeping the group safe that he hadn't taken the time to truly connect with the land as they had. But he knew he couldn't afford to fail here. After a moment, he settled on a carving of a bird-like creature they had seen from a distance, soaring above the jungle canopy. "This one," he said quietly. "It's free. It moves through the skies, not bound by the dangers on the ground. But it's not reckless. It knows when to fly high and when to stay low." His offering was simple. A small piece of wood he had carved from a fallen branch earlier in the day. Shaped into the symbol of flight, he placed it at the base of the carving and whispered a silent prayer, hoping it would be enough. When the ritual was complete, Salia stepped forward, her gaze sweeping over the humans. "You have each made your choice," she said, her voice carrying the weight of the tribe's expectations. "The land has heard you, but whether it accepts you is yet to be seen." The tribe fell into a quiet, tense silence as they waited for a sign, something that would indicate the humans' place among them. The jungle itself seemed to hold its breath, the usual sounds of life eerily absent. And then, as if in response, a soft breeze stirred the air, rustling the leaves and carrying the scent of the earth. It was subtle, but in that moment Riley, Maya, and Tom felt a shift, a connection to the land that hadn't been there before. Salia nodded, satisfied. "You have taken your first step," she said. "But remember, this is only the beginning. The land has accepted your presence, but you must continue to prove your worth." Riley, Maya, and Tom exchanged relieved glances. They had passed this test, but they knew there would be many more to come. They had earned the tribe's tentative approval, but the true challenge would be maintaining it and finding their place in this strange, beautiful, and unforgiving world. The weeks that followed the ritual were marked by a cautious sense of peace between the humans and the tribe. The trial had earned them a degree of respect, but it was clear that this was just the beginning. Every day brought a new challenge, as the humans worked to prove that they could truly coexist with the tribe, not just as outsiders but as participants in their way of life. One of the biggest hurdles was the language barrier. Although Maya had learned a few basic phrases, the tribe's language was complex, filled with subtle inflections and meanings that went far beyond simple communication. It wasn't just about words. It was about intent, about conveying respect and understanding in every interaction. Without full fluency, misunderstandings were inevitable, and the tribe was not forgiving of mistakes. Riley, determined to bridge the gap, spent every spare moment studying the tribe's language and culture. He sought out the tribe's elders, those who had seen many seasons pass and had deep knowledge of the land and its history. Though initially wary of him, the elders began to share fragments of their wisdom, teaching him about the cycles of the planet, the animals that roamed its forests, and the deep spiritual connection they had with their surroundings. It became clear to Riley that the tribe didn't just survive on this planet. They thrived because they understood it in a way that was almost symbiotic. Every action they took was in harmony with the land. They hunted only what they needed, took only what the earth offered, and respected the creatures they lived alongside. This wasn't just survival. It was a philosophy, a way of life that was deeply ingrained in their every action. Maya, on the other hand, threw herself into learning the tribe's physical skills. She spent hours training with the warriors, honing her body and mind to match their rigorous standards. It was grueling work, but she was determined to prove that she wasn't weak, that she could hold her own among these towering women who moved with the grace and power of predators. Each day, her muscles ached from the strain, but she welcomed the pain as a sign of progress. Her persistence didn't go unnoticed. The warriors began to see her as something more than an outsider. Slowly, she earned their respect, though it was never spoken outright. One evening, after a particularly intense training session, one of the warriors, a woman named Aluna, approached Maya. She handed her a small, intricately carved knife, an acknowledgement of her growing strength and skill. "This is a warrior's tool," Aluna said, her voice low but firm. "You are not yet one of us, but you are on the path." Maya took the knife with a solemn nod, understanding the weight of the gesture. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a symbol of her progress, of her place in this world that was still so foreign but was slowly becoming more familiar. Tom, meanwhile, found his place by using his engineering and technical knowledge to aid the tribe. The tools they had brought from the ship were limited, and most had been damaged in the crash, but Tom was resourceful. He repaired what he could and began fashioning new tools using the materials the planet provided. His inventions were simple but effective: improvised weapons, tools for gathering food, and devices for communication. He also discovered that the tribe's warriors, despite their formidable physical abilities, lacked some basic medical knowledge. When a young warrior was injured in a hunting accident, Tom stepped in, using his rudimentary medical training to clean and bandage the wound. The tribe watched him closely, their distrust still evident. But when the warrior's wound healed without infection, they began to recognize his value. The tribe's healer, an older woman named Neva, began to seek Tom's advice on certain medical matters, though their methods were vastly different. Hers rooted in the natural remedies of the planet, his in the science of Earth. They found common ground in their desire to heal. Tom learned much from Neva, discovering the powerful medicinal properties of the planet's flora. It was a mutual exchange of knowledge, one that began to build a bridge between their worlds. Despite these small victories, the humans knew that their position was still precarious. The tribe respected strength, but they also valued something deeper, a connection to the planet that the humans were still struggling to understand. Salia, the tribe's leader, remained distant, her approval always just out of reach. She observed them with sharp eyes, her judgment never far behind. One evening, after a long day of training and work, Salia summoned the humans to a private meeting. The atmosphere was tense, the air thick with unspoken expectations. As they stood before her, Riley could feel the weight of her gaze pressing down on them, as if she was measuring their worth. "You have done well to survive," she began, her voice steady and commanding. "But survival is not enough. You must prove that you belong here, that you understand this land and its people." Riley nodded, knowing this was coming. "We've been learning every day. We're trying to understand." Salia's eyes narrowed slightly. "Understanding is not something you can claim so easily. The land is alive, as are we. You must show us that you are not just visitors, here to take what you need and leave. You must show us that you are part of this world." Maya stepped forward, her voice confident despite the tension. "We've been training, learning from your warriors. We've been helping where we can. Isn't that enough?" Salia's gaze flicked to Maya, and for a moment, there was silence. Then, she spoke again, her voice softer but no less powerful. "To be part of this world, you must be willing to give up your old one, your old ways, your old thoughts, your old weaknesses. Only then will the land accept you." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Riley, Maya, and Tom exchanged glances, each of them realizing the full weight of what Salia was saying. They couldn't just coexist with the tribe, they had to fully immerse themselves in this new life, or they would never be truly accepted. Riley took a deep breath, stepping forward to meet Salia's gaze. "We understand," he said quietly. "We're ready to do what it takes." Salia studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, finally, she nodded. "There will be one more trial, a test of your commitment, of your willingness to let go of your old life. If you pass, you will be one of us. If you fail—" She didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. The humans left the meeting with heavy hearts, knowing that the hardest part of their journey was yet to come. They had fought to survive, learned the ways of the tribe, and earned a tentative place among them. But now they faced their greatest challenge, proving that they could truly belong.